Right, got something exciting for you this time. I'm at Nessieland with the Loch Ness monster, Drumnadrochit in Scotland, and this fascinates me because I live in this area in the Great Glen, and it's such an amazing area. It's got such myths and legends, and obviously the Loch Ness monster is the best. And I'm here today at Nessieland, which has got this visitor centre. It's got a cafe. You can have some food and drink, gift shop, and the guy that works here, Marky HK, who we're going to do a little interview with, he's Australian, fascinating guy. He's got a lot of stories. He's wrote this book, Eerie Planet, which is about all the encounters that he thinks are quite fascinating to do with the mystical, the magic, the myths and legends. And like I said, he's got this book out. He'll tell you a little bit about that when we have a talk with him. But I'm going to try and get in depth with him, why he came to Scotland, why he likes this particular place. He's settled down here. And I can see the fascination with the Loch Ness. So many people coming in from all over the world. I love it. You love it. So let's go and see with our Loch Ness friend. Let's go and have a word with Mark. Give him a little chat, see what's going on, and we'll go from there. Let's go. Right, so it's Marky I call you, isn't it?
Marky.
Marky, yeah. Marky
HK.
HK, brilliant.
Yeah.
And thanks for having a little chat with me.
No problems. Pleasure.
We're just obviously I come here a lot, and I occasionally see you in here.
Yeah.
But I've never really gone into the in depth of asking what you do, where you come from, and why the Loch Ness. So let's just start from the beginning.
Okay.
Just why you're obviously Australian.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was born in the UK.
You're born in the UK.
Yeah.
And just give me a little bit of an insight what you did then.
Okay. I was born in the UK, immigrated to Australia with my family when I was 11 in 1980. But I've always had a fascination with Loch Ness and the whole mystery, the enigma, and the mythical beast that inhabits the place. I'd always read all the books in the school library, watch every doco that came on TV. This is pre-internet days, of course. And I've always dreamt of going to Loch Ness and just being caught up in that whole mystery.
Yeah, and so this was when you were sort of like, what, teenage years in Australia?
Oh, before that.
But before that,
Yeah,
when you were much younger?
Yeah,
when
much younger, as a kid, yeah.
As a kid, you...
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you were in Australia, so you were fascinated about all this, and how did you start to sort of think, I want to maybe pursue and look, because in your book, your Eerie Planet, obviously this was the first, the Loch Ness Monster was the first of it. You then sort of like watching movies or listening to documentaries as you were growing up.
Exactly.
You start to maybe people who were travelling around to Australia telling you stories.
Yep.
It started captured in your mind and thinking, I want to pursue something with this. So how did you sort of, from your young age, then you went to like upper school, and then what sort of, were you taken on by it? How did you sort of want to take your career or travel then, or what?
Yeah, well, I grew up with watching horror movies. I've always had a lifelong fascination with horror movies too. Well, from my early teenage years anyway. Yeah. And from there, it grew into the paranormal and the esoteric, and the whole mystical aspect of things. And so in my in about 2008 is when I first came to Loch Ness, and periodically from then I started to travel and discover more places. And I'd get photos, of course, and I'd research into the background of all these places. And that's when the book came into play. That was actually my second book. Eerie Planet, the first edition, was my second book. And I just thought, someone suggested the idea to me, a friend of mine, David Sinclair Smith. He suggested, why don't you put together a book of all the dark places that you visited with dark history? And use it as like a tourism guide. And I thought, well, why not indeed? It's a great idea. I mean, it's a lengthy project, of course. Yeah. Because, traveling, especially from Australia, you can't just do this thing overnight. It takes time. Yeah. So, we'll go back to the book, but I just want to briefly, a bit about yourself. You were actually, as well as probably numerous jobs, you were actually in a rock band in Australia? I was in a punk band, a hardcore punk band called Anger in Motion.
Anger in Motion, and were quite successful in Australia?
Well, not we were well known.
You were well known.
Yeah, we didn't sell millions of records or anything, and we weren't like touring the world on a regular basis. But we were well known within the underground scene. Yeah,
brilliant. So you enjoyed that.
Yeah,
and was that around the time that you were like the first book was?
Yeah, that was my first book that chronicles my involvement with the underground scene, Australian underground scene. 30 Years of Anger, it's called.
Yeah,
and that was just the story of my whole involvement with it, and as a teenager arriving in Australia to fronting, the band, and just all my other projects I did, like running clubs and managing bands, and it also features interviews with other musicians, club owners, record company owners,
fantastic,
and just everyone that was involved, around that, all the politics that went down, all the violence, and just all the shit fights and so forth. Yeah.
So you had quite a colourful life in Australia, but then there was the move, obviously, when you've come back to the UK and you're now settled in one of the most beautiful places in Scotland.
Absolutely,
the Loch Ness. So give me a brief. What made you come? Actually, obviously, the monster and your creativity with your book and your.
Well, it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
I started travelling periodically from 2011. I do, and then I just came back to Europe, fairly frequently, as much as I could anyway. That and the United States. And the first aspiration was to move to Tasmania because that's my favourite place in Australia. But logistically, it was just too hard. So I thought to myself, well, I've done all I can in Australia, and there's not much left for me to do here. So I might as well move back to the UK, move back to Europe. And so that's how it came about. So I just decided to do the big move and stay here.
Yeah. So you're at Loch Ness now. So when people come to Nessieland, they can actually see yourself. You're right here. You've wrote books. You've been in bands. You've experienced. You get stories at first hand of encounters that are on the loch.
Yep.
So you're basically the hub to come to.
I'm pretty much the Nessieland consultant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that comes across. You've got a good way about you when you talk to people. And I've seen you in here with all the fascination of people when they bring their encounters and stories of Loch Ness to you.
Certainly, yeah.
So just sum it up for me. You're here now. You're obviously really enjoying it. You've got the books. We've got a great environment where you're working, the cafe, the shop. There's a lot of little changes to make it better, and to keep moving on with the times and things like that.
Yep.
So this is what's all happening in Nessieland.
Absolutely.
And I can see this being the first step, and you're obviously enjoying it here. This is your second season, second year here now. And just sum it up for me now. What you want to get out for the next few years? Do you want to meet more people? Do you want to investigate on the loch? Do you want to?
Well, the next thing in the pipeline is a friend of mine in Australia. He actually visited me here last week, Dick Dale. Him and I want to put together a podcast and then work on a documentary TV series based on the Eerie Planet book.
Well, you've heard it first here on here, folks. So you've got documentaries coming out. You've got Marky here, which will be behind the till. He'll actually give you all the information you need if you come to Nessieland. Yep. It's been a pleasure. We always have a little chat when I come in and a coffee and that. He's always very humble, but full of life, full of stories. And when you come to Nessieland, you'll meet Mark. And thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure.
And we'll go and have a coffee.
Shall do.
Cheers.